let's think about what are the issues that girls' education address, because it is not a gender issue. It is a fundamental issue that affects everyone. It affects all our lives. Every one of us was born to a woman, and our mother's position in life, our mother's health, has had a profound impact on our lives, and that is true for everyone in the world. So when a child is born to a mother who is not educated, then that child is disadvantaged from the very first day. In fact, it is disadvantaged in the womb, because the mother is probably doesn't understand about the need for good nutrition, perhaps hasn't got the means in any event to give herself good nutrition. So the education of women has a profound impact on the next generation. Now, Araldo talked about population. Of course, women who have no status, who have no economic choices, also are the women having very large numbers of children. The education of girls has a profound impact on the numbers of children women bear. So it has a profound impact on our position in terms of environmental sustainability. And where we see the highest rate of growth in terms of populations is indeed in those very countries which are poorest, in those very countries where women's status is lowest. And for every 2 or 3 years of education, of a girl's education, she is likely to have one less child. Now, interestingly, male education does not have a positive correlation in relation to fertility. In fact, there are some indications that increases in male education have an impact on female fertility, which is to encourage female fertility. So the number of years girls are in school does have a profound impact. Of course, it also has a profound impact on the health of the next generation, on the health and educational opportunities of the next generation. So on that basis, there are many, there's major research. It's a major policy issue now, and all the data is there. So what have we done? Well, I started really as a novice. I went to do research in Zimbabwe looking into this issue of exclusion of girls from education. And my understanding at that time, from all I had read and all I had studied, was that the reason girls were not at school was fundamentally a cultural one. The resistance of parents to the education of their daughters. And what I found in the most traditional community of Zimbabwe, where the Tonga people were living, very, very poor, the poorest part of Zimbabwe, what I found surprised and challenged me, and that was that people were saying the reason girls went to school was fundamentally because of poverty. And if we think about the choices of poor people, every choice they make has a bearing, not on the next year or 5 or 10 years, but on day-to-day survival. They think deeply and long and hard about the choices they make. And the reality is, in a context where male employment is much more common, where boys can go out and search for work in the towns and cities and are considered to be safer, girls are likely to marry, will take any benefits of their education to their future partner's home. The reality is that the security of poor people depends on the education of sons and not on the education of daughters. And this had a profound impact on me, because I thought, well, if that is the reality, the opportunity to change this is clearly profound, because we're not talking about attitudinal change, which, as we know, takes many, many years, can take generations. We're actually talking about the material costs of supporting girls into school. Now, I came home, I live in Cambridge, England, and I went to see various agencies, and I was met with some serious skepticism. I can understand why. I was a novice. I didn't have any choice in the matter. I had to do it myself. And I think that's what all of us here know, that this is about the democratization of action, that we cannot afford to leave everything to those in power to the policymakers, we have to build grassroots movement for change. So I became part of that grassroots movement for change in Africa. And because I couldn't find a partner, I couldn't find an organization that would join with me, and I also found the skepticism was not just in relation to me personally, but the skepticism was in relation to the weddedness to what people saw as the facts, the research. That the research was telling people that it was about culture. And I think that has come up today. You know, what data are we using? How are we gathering data? And I think the process of data gathering is absolutely fundamental to the changes that we seek and the way we work. So for us, the philosophy of measurement has become profoundly important, not only for us to have an influence on the donors, on policymakers, but for us to be sharing and working in the communities in which we are. We work across 77 very large districts of sub-Saharan Africa, and we share that data with them. For example, one thing we know is that all the schools in which we work, there has been, in Zambia, there has been a reduction of pregnancy among schoolgirls, all schoolgirls in those schools, of 9%. Now, if you multiply that, if you had all schools working on gender-sensitive policies, making schools safe places for girls, then we would see, we could multiply that change. So we are sharing that back to the schools, back to the communities, through multiple means, through means which don't often involve literacy, because many of our communities, the majority, are non-literate. So I think that is fundamental, that what we know and what we gather is shared with those communities that are facing the problems on a day-by-day basis. Now, Maki has kindly spoken of some of our achievements, just to focus on where we are as an organisation. Working across 5 countries now, we have partnership agreements with all the governments with which we work. In Zambia, the child protection work in our schools has now been adopted by the Ministry of Education, and we are working with them to push that through every school in Zambia. We have found an openness of national governments in Africa to work with us. Because we work long term, these are problems that are not going to be solved by 3-5-year project cycles, which is so common in the international aid industry. Because we work long term, we now have girls who come through childhood, through adolescence, and now into young adulthood. There are now 14,005 members of an alumni organisation across 5 countries. And they are leading change. They understand the problems of poverty. They empathise with children in circumstances that they once were. They are the role models. And I think they have a tremendous opportunity in this movement. Because one of the problems that we see is that the resource depletion is happening, of course, because people have no alternatives. I was in Malawi 2 weeks ago, and I was in a district close to Blantyre, the city of Blantyre, where there's a very high mountain full of beautiful trees. And going up and down that mountain are cycles going up the mountain, and on the way down, men holding fast to these overladen cycles with wood, with cut wood. And it is just, going on 16 hours a day. It's the only source of livelihood. We have to extend and diversify the economies, and we can diversify them into the issues of, alternative sources of energy. Of course, there is massive depletion of the tree cover, because the only source of cooking is wood. And all of you who've been to Africa would have seen the women carrying heavy loads of wood on their heads. Now, in the traditional communities where they have done this, they have cooked this way for many, many years, we need ambassadors. We need ambassadors from those communities who really understand the issue and what this means for their community. And these 14,005 young women are those ambassadors. They speak the local language, they understand the local mores, they can work with the community and really drive change. Because when change is coming from without, we are much less likely to have a really significant impact. Now, at policy level, we are achieving significant impact because we have individuals who are now speaking on the global stage. So young women from the communities in Africa who were once barefoot girls with no chance of education are now influencing at the highest level. At the World Economic Forum, they on platforms, at the UN, they are in discussions. What an incredible opportunity to listen and learn from the very people who face these problems on a day-to-day basis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, that was fabulous. We will be hearing more in the afternoon. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
If anybody wants to know more about our work, we have a website, CAMFED, CAMFED.org, and we have an impact report which gives a lot of the statistics around our work. You're very welcome to have a copy. We can send you one.
Thank you very much.